Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dance Teacher Pep Talk. I am your host, Amanda, and I am so glad you are here. This is a space for dance teachers and anyone interested in teaching dance who is looking for motivation and fresh ideas. As teachers, we spend our days motivating and giving pep talks to our students, and now this podcast is a pep talk just for you. We hope that it helps to ignite new ideas and even work through some deep dance related thoughts before you head into the studio. Thank you for your support, and now let's get into today's episode. Hi, everybody, and welcome back. I am so excited to be back here on the podcast with brand new episodes for our 2024 year. I had a really nice, relaxing break, and I just felt like I was filled with inspiring ideas through that time. For not only the podcast, but also for my classes and the rest of the dance year ahead. So I hope that all of you had a really wonderful holiday break as well. I hope that you returned to the studio feeling rejuvenated and ready to go for this 2024. So, for today's episode, episode 33, I thought it would be a good idea to start with sort of a monthly check in, similar to how I would do that in the fall. And since this isn't the beginning of the month, though, I thought it might be a good idea to check in about this mid month because when the new year starts, we a lot of the time are really big on creating our resolutions, creating our goals, creating our intentions for the year, whatever it is that you call it. It tends to be really big at the start of the year. And now here we are, 2 weeks into the new year. And sometimes at this point, you may realize where you are sticking to some of your goals and where some of your goals are already kind of falling off track. And sometimes when we start the year off with that really like go forward for it energy, sometimes it's overwhelming. Sometimes we have too many things that we hope to accomplish. And so sometimes this point of the month is a good time to check in and see which of your goals that you have set for yourself are worthwhile, attainable, and things that you really are hoping for. And either that or also breaking it down. Can we move and shift some of these goals that we have or big plans that we have to different months of the year so that we're not feeling this all consuming need to accomplish and be all the things that we can be starting right out the gate in January? So today's episode is specific to goals and intentions and resolutions as a dance teacher. And so this episode is really specifically drawn to that. So I have my own personal goals, I have my own life goals, but these are specific to dance teaching. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because I think most of us, I mean, I'm kind of generalizing this, but I feel that most of the time we want to be the best dance teacher we can be. And it's so interesting to me because when I think about being a teacher, so I did go to school for a portion of my schooling as for elementary education. And so I was literally taught how to teach or ways of teaching. But something that I think is so, so important within our teaching is that we take from the experiences that we've had, the great teachers, the not so great teachers, just the different experiences to help form our own teaching philosophy because we are all little bits of the things that we have taken from our past and we use what works for us and what doesn't work for us within our teaching already. And so I think about myself and my teaching philosophy and the things that I do and don't do. And so much of that has been influenced from the many great teachers that I've had and the many great experiences that I've had. And I think that the majority of us do this. And sometimes it's important for us to check in to see how can we continue to be the greatest dance teacher we can be. And I say this without putting a lot of pressure on it because I'm not asking this question so that we can all of a sudden push ourselves really hard towards a burnout stage of constantly trying to be the best, constantly trying to be this when we are enough as we are. But it's that idea of bettering ourselves. How can we better ourselves not only for our students, but for us? Because I don't know about you, but when I take the time to push myself, encourage myself, motivate myself forward, my classes change and the energy for my students change as well. So, for today's episode, I really started to think about the question, what makes a great dance teacher? In true fashion of things that I do that can be a little cheesier out there, I actually started writing them down and noticed that it almost went along with the alphabet. So, today I'm going to give you A through L of ideas that can help us to create our intentions in this 2024 year as dance teachers. So, let's get started into this list here. So, for A, I have awareness. I feel that a really great dance teacher is aware not only of the space that they're teaching, like looking around, making sure for safety and all of that, but also the energy. I think it's incredibly important to be aware of the vibe, tone, and energy of the dancers on a given day because I think that learning needs to happen in environments that are conducive to what we're able to hold at that time. So if dancers are coming in ready to go, ready for a lot of information, that's a great day to really fill in new skills, new ideas, to really push the technique side of things. If the dancers walk in and the energy is really low and something is clearly going on, that's not necessarily a day to push at them. It's a day to try to figure out how to give the material on the wavelength that they can receive it at, and also for them to find success within their class. I don't know if you've ever had a day where you're feeling really lower down, and maybe you go to a class hoping that it will turn your mood around, and instead you just feel frustrated. You feel like, I shouldn't have even done that. Why did I do that? It didn't really help you to move out of that space. Well, that can happen for your students as well. And so, if you had entered that space feeling that frustration or lowness that you had to start, and the teacher really gave a beautiful class that helped to motivate you to move through that feeling and to get to a feeling of maybe clarity or calmness, whatever it is that you're needing, that brought more success to you in that moment. So I do feel awareness is very important, not only of the safety of the room, safety of the work that you're doing with your dancers and knowing where each dancer is at level wise within your class, but also the energy of the day. For B, I think a great dance teacher has a very good delivery of building blocks and breakdowns. I know, especially in the studio setting that we are currently in, if you're teaching elementary, high school, middle school, we sometimes are focused more so on skills, whereas maybe adult dance classes are maybe more focused towards choreography. However, that's a whole different episode. But in that scheme of things, if we are teaching our studio, elementary, middle, high school age students skills and things like that, I think it's really important to be able to know how to deliver breakdowns of steps and to really talk about the building blocks of each movement because you're not just going to learn how to do an advanced movement if you haven't gotten the basic building blocks prior to that. In my Pilates certification, this is a very key and important part. You don't start a client at advanced level mat, you begin at the introductory mat, not basic, not beginner, but introductory. And that's because you're learning movement patterns that help facilitate the more advanced movements safely when you get to that point. And so I think that building blocks, knowing how to break down what you're teaching is really important. And if choreography is a focus for you in your class, to be aware of that too. Are the skills that you're putting in your choreography or the movements or the phrases and the movement patterns, are they in a place, are the students in a place to be able to receive that, or are the skills beyond where they are at right now? So it's very important to make sure that we're thinking about that when we're putting together the choreography aspect of things. And also, with the choreography, going back to, gosh, it was one of the earlier episodes, I can't remember, but one of the episodes that I mentioned about class planning, lesson planning, is the idea of backwards by design or backwards design. And so if you do know that combination is going to be a part of your class, start there. Okay. And so if you have your combination and you have your skills in there working backwards, you know that, okay, if you have this movement in it, then across the floor before the combination, we're going to work on that skill. And then before the across the floor moment in center, we're going to work on the strength foundations to prepare us to do that skill across the floor. So it's kind of about like taking the work that you're doing and moving backwards with it and making sure that your students are in a place to receive and be able to execute these movements safely in a given day. For letter C, I put the word compassion. This kind of goes a lot too with the awareness of energy that I mentioned in letter A. But for C, compassion, I mean, I think the word just speaks for itself. When I see great dance teachers, out at competitions, at workshops, conventions, people that I follow, one thing that I notice is the heart and soul that they have just completely exudes outward. They have so much care and energy for the dancers that they teach and take care of, and I think it's just an incredibly important attribute that compassion is not only a human quality that's important, but as a dance teacher, you are providing a warm, safe, comforting, and encouraging environment for your dancers to grow. And I've spoken on this before too, but I feel that if we have a space where we feel safe, we are going to grow exponentially. But if we do not feel safe in our space, our body, even physically, will begin to tighten in areas. Our body starts to protect us in means in different ways. We may go into like a shell like mode when we don't feel safe. We withdraw. So it's so important to have that compassionate environment for your dancers so that they can grow and progress to the next level. All right, D. For the word D, I put differently. And the reason I put differently is because kind of going along with building block and breakdowns is we need to also be able to deliver our material in different ways because the dancers that walk into your classroom are not all going to have the same learning styles. And so you may have a skill that you're trying to break down one way, but that might not be enough. We might need to think about how to break down a skill in many different ways or show it in different ways. And even to the amount of time we're working on things in different time lengths per student, because not everyone is going to receive the material in the same way or learn it at the same rate. Some may require very little, like maybe they're the type where you teach the skill once or twice and they've got it, but other students are going to maybe require more time. And so knowing that as a teacher, it's really important that we differentiate how we are teaching and delivering the material is going to be very important. And in the elementary school setting, that is definitely done and or taught at least to be done in the sense of how you're teaching the material, but I think the same applies for dance. And so for me, that's been a really important part of my education background, is knowing that material should be delivered in many different ways when needed. Okay, for letter E, I put energy. And I know this kind of, we talked about the energy that your students are bringing in, but I also want to talk about the energy that we are bringing in. And so I know just like our students can't turn off the emotions that we're feeling in that day, I think it's important for us to be able to check in with the energy that we have when we're coming in. And when I think about the teachers that I mentioned that have really drawn my attention to them, like on their Instagram pages or whatnot, or even just the energy, like I said, that they give off at workshops and conventions and things like that, is that there is something about their energy that makes me want to connect. There is something about their energy that is very open and warm, very friendly and inviting, and also just an energy that they truly love what they do. There is this field of it's just this feeling. I can't really describe it other than that. And maybe me just talking about it, kind of what I mean. But there are just people in life that you feel drawn to and just inspired by. So, knowing that energy, we give off an energy. And day to day, it could be different, of course, but being aware of what we are bringing into the classroom and knowing that if we are at a lower energy that day, do we push through it? Do we try to get the energy from our dancers to help uplift us through the class? So that has helped me many times. Or is it something that we need to sort of, you know, go with the flow of, or flip the switch and just try to go completely against what energy we're feeling of that day? What is it that is going to be a tool for you that's going to help you get to the energy that you want to be at for your class in that day? For F, I put the word foundation. And I think it's so important. We have our foundation of dance ourselves, and we have to remember too that these dancers are receiving their foundation of dance in our classrooms. And something that I love that helps just build upon my foundation is continuing to build my own craft by taking continuing ed courses or things like that, even informative videos on YouTube or books, reading books about different things, whether it's actually a dance book or maybe it is a self empowerment book or things like that. I know I've spoken on those before too. But building your craft, building the foundation that you are bringing within your space. Because if your foundation is enriched, your students will be as well. For G, I put the gift of presence. And the reason why I did this is because, again, these great dance teachers that I watch, what I notice is they're present. They are present with their students. And I don't mean that they are there for them, I mean that they are there with them. They are engaged with them, they are encouraging of them. They have this energy of being so involved with the students' progress. And it's like they are their biggest cheerleader in a way. And they're, like I said, not only encouraging and giving, but they are there with them. They're there for them. And so watching these great dance teachers, that's always something that has stuck out to me is that their presence when they are there with their students is just so connected and so beautiful to see. Some of these next letters kind of go together. So for H, I had heart. I'm going to skip over I. J was joy, and L is love. So I'll get back to I and K. But heart, joy, and love. I think it's such an important reminder to just remember your why you do this. A lot of the time, we're dance teachers because we love dance and because it's been a beautiful role in our lives and we are so inspired by it that we want to teach it. And so remembering the heart, the joy, and the love of dance is such an important thing for a great dance teacher. For independence. And this kind of goes along. I know I was just talking about the gift of presence, but the other thing that I notice about great dance teachers is they allow space for their students to find their own being and their own selves. I know this can be different age to age because, a younger student is probably going to require more of you than an older student would. But I'm kind of speaking on the sense of like competition. Like, say, for example, you're at a competition. And what I've noticed through the years, I have kind of shifted and changed the way and my philosophy of this because I love to be there for my students. I know there are times nowadays that I can't always be there for them, just, my things in my life and stuff like that. However, when I am there, I truly love to be so presently there for them. And for independence, something that shifted and changed for me is it was so important and so beautiful to see when the older dancers started to take on the responsibilities and roles for themselves because I sort of equated it to like, okay, if these dancers are going away to school soon or away to a different, starting their careers and things like that, I am not going to be there to hold their hand all the time. I'm not going to be there to support them by their side all the time. And so for me, it was really important to start to give them a little bit more independence in their space. So for like competition, maybe I would, give them their good luck hug, let them warm up on their own. I would not run their solo with them. Maybe they would run it for themselves and they would be responsible for taking care of the work that they do. And then when it came to, time to go backstage, like I said, to give a good luck hug and head out to the audience to see them and not always remain backstage. Though I'm not saying that that's a bad thing at all because I know the closeness and proximity that we feel to our dancers can be supportive for them and, really special for us as well. But what I'm just saying is that I noticed a big change when I allowed that space for more independence. And it also helped me to feel that I was giving them a moment for themselves. Another thing alongside this idea of giving them space for themselves is, as we get older with the solo experience, choreographing solos and things like that, I like to tell them like I want you to be able to have yourself in this work. I want you to be able to find who you are within the movement that I'm giving you because it's not me that's going out on stage to do this choreography, it's the dancer. And so I really like to promote that feeling that yes, this is the work. that I'm giving you, but what are you going to do with it? And how are you going to grow and develop it into your own? Because I do think it's an important space at this time to be able to start to find their style and the ways that they feel unique in their movement and their performance. So, guiding them, like I said, guiding them to a place and a space that is, at a good level and a good amount of support, but also giving them room to experiment and to try for themselves. And of course, I'm just right around the corner or I'm just a text away, but knowing that they have that ability to do that is something that I noticed was a big shift for me. So, independence and working towards that. And then lastly, K, I know I was jumping over here and there and everywhere towards the end of the list, but I put kick it up a notch. And the reason why I said kick it up a notch is because I think it's important alongside all of this, the energy, the feelings, like all those things that I was just talking about, that we also know how to push our students because there is, I think, a line between pushing yourself too far and not pushing yourself enough. And so it's important to be able to see where and how we can do that. Sometimes there are instances where it is not okay to kick it up a notch. But most of the time there are instances that there are to push and to challenge because we want to help the dancers to reach their highest level of progress for themselves. And every dancer is going to be different with that. But there's like a quote out there. I don't remember who said it, but it's about like change doesn't happen when you're comfortable, or something about like if you're feeling comfortable, growth isn't happening. Growth happens when you're pushed outside of your comfort zone. It's some kind of a quote like that. I know I totally did not say it right, but I think you get the idea. And so we want to be able to know when it's appropriate to push a dancer and to know when we've reached that enough moment. Okay. And to continue to kick it up a notch and to push the dancers with encouragement in a safe and supportive environment because these dancers are only with us for so long. And if we can give them the best experience that we can and the most joyous of environment and things like that, I think if we can do that, then why not? Because when I look back at the great teachers that I've had, that has been a feeling that has always been present. I was safe to progress. I was able to move ahead because I felt the joy, love, support, and encouragement of the environment that they provided. I also know what it feels like to feel really nervous and shut off, like maybe in a convention experience where I was unfamiliar with a teacher, unfamiliar with the movement, and the frustration of I don't even want to try this. I don't even want to do it because it becomes this point of not feeling any level of success in what you're doing. So that's where I'm talking about too, about like knowing where and when to push and kick it up a notch, because we want our students to feel safe and safe enough to be able to go to that next level for themselves. So for today's list of things, I know I could have continued on. I really could have, but for the sake of the time of this episode, I wanted to just keep it to, an A to L list. But basically, I hope that today's list helps you to begin questioning to what has made great dance teacher experiences in your life? Who are people that you've seen that are you aspire to be or aspire to be like, and great dance teachers that you've had experience with, because it's going to help reform, reconnect, and restructure the way that we look at how we're doing our intentions, resolutions, and goals for the year. Because, the movement is one thing, the skills are. That's, the things that we teach, but how we teach it is what is going to make the lasting impact. Because I've mentioned this before, but for me, I don't want to be just a dance teacher. I want to make sure that the experience and feeling that I'm creating in my classroom is something that's going to carry them forward as life lessons through their years. Because, when they're 45 years old, if they remember how to do a double pirouette, amazing. But if they remember the attributes, the human characteristics, the compassion, and the energy of being there for each other and the feeling of community, that to me is much more important. And I was using 45 as just kind of like a random age out there, but it could be any age, that I want them to have that memory and to think back on that. So I hope that you all have a beautiful start to your dance year. 2024 is going to be such an amazing year, and I'm so excited for the opportunities of information that we're going to have here on this podcast. So make sure that you're following us on whatever podcast platform you listen to most. And I want to thank you all so much for being here. I hope that maybe one or two of today's items inspire you further in your week ahead. If you are enjoying the podcast, I would love if you would share it with friends and colleagues to get the message out there. And you can also rate and review on the podcast platform that you listen to. Also, follow us on Instagram at Dance Teacher Pep Talk for classroom tips, resources, and more. Thank you all again so much and have a beautiful rest of your week.